Imagine a beautiful Sunday morning. You're headed to church as a family. What would you think if I told you that one of your children would leave that day with more than a Bible study told with the felt cutouts, more than a macaroni noodle craft and a cup of juice and a cookie, but with their innocence stolen and their trust shattered? And so it happens over and over again every year all over America. And it affects our churches in long-lasting ways, beyond that, just on an individual level. Our children are our future. And how can our future be healthy if it contains such woundedness? Raised in an abusive church community, I've seen firsthand the effects, devastating effects, that can occur in a church culture where the issue of abuse is not addressed. And I've seen a once large and vibrant church be brought to nothing because of it. It's time to wake up to the realities of sexual assault within the church, and it's time to take a realistic stock of what can and should be done, both to prevent it and to deal with it when it happens. Child sexual assault is a growing problem in our society as a whole, and there's no reason to think that our churches would escape this scourge. And while its effects are always devastating, they're compounded when they happen in a place where a child should be learning the love, the acceptance, and the beauty of the Lord. So let's take a closer look. Sexual molestation of a child is not a subject that many want to acknowledge, but that does not negate the truth of it. The national organization Child Help reports there is a report of child abuse every 10 seconds in this country. And the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network reports there will be 237,868 new sexual assault victims every single year. And it's not the dirty old man hiding in the shadows that you have to worry about. Child Help tells us that 90% of all sexual victims know their abusers. It could be a neighbor, a friend, a teacher, a coach, and yes, even a church worker. But how does abuse within the church affect a child differently than an abuse in a different situation? When a child is abused within the church, along with the usual devastating effects that accompany such a trauma, there are less obvious but equally damaging effects as well. Published in Science Direct by S. Rosati, a study showed significant loss of trust of the child, not just of the church body, but because the abuser was a representative of God himself in the child's eyes, the child then loses trust in God himself. When the abuse happens in the Roman Catholic Church, oftentimes a young girl's self-image is most greatly affected. As reported by Kay Francis, Mother Mary and her virginity is held up as an example of purity and wholeness. So when a girl is sexually violated, there is a direct conflict between her self-esteem and the perfection of Mary. Finally, let's take a look at what can be done. There are some fairly easy, simple steps that can help ensure the safety of our children as they participate in our children's ministries. In the publication Christianity Today, we read that less than 1/3 of all churches regularly screen their volunteers, with even fewer doing criminal background checks. That is the easiest and best place to start. On the website of Brotherhood Mutual Insurance, a specialist in insuring churches and other ministries, there are a few rules laid out that can also help take care of our kids. The two-adult rule. No child is ever left alone with an adult. Even when being taken to the restroom, another adult accompanies. Establish a claim check guideline. When a child is checked in, when dropped off, he is issued a number. The parent is then given a tag with the corresponding number on it. No child is allowed to leave the building with any adult that cannot produce that number with the tag and then sign the child out. Also, there's the 6-month rule. It's a good idea to be sure that attendees are regular attendees for 6 months or so before allowing them access to work with minors. Because pedophiles many times just church shop in search of their newest victim, this rule alone will sometimes discourage them from using our churches as their hunting grounds. Now, to wrap up, there's a growing problem with sexual assault in our society, and it can be found in our churches today, with devastating effects for its victims. It can warp a child's view of love and acceptance and the beauty of the Lord, and it's time we take this threat seriously. It's past time to turn a blind eye to the reality of sexual assault in our churches. It's past time to pretend that it couldn't happen in your church. It's past time to live in denial. It's time to stand up and take this danger seriously and implement the necessary safeguards for our children's sake. Now close your eyes, if you will, and picture the face of a little loved one. It could be your child, your grandchild, your neighbor, your niece, your nephew. Now imagine looking into their eyes as it reflects back their woundedness, and explain to them why you sat and did nothing and said nothing to prevent or even discourage what happened to them. We must work for a world where it can be said of no child, on her soul she sees the fingerprints of those who scheme to steal her innocence. She goes through life screaming inside. There's no one around to hear her cries. Will you be the one who listens, who hears, who moves to prevent and protect? The choice is yours. Thank you, and God bless.